Welcome everyone to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote series. We are very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management systems for higher education. You might be familiar with our software applications, including AccuTrack, Accudemia, and AccuCampus. And I do want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients joining us today. And for those of you who are not yet clients, I do want to let you know we are offering a complimentary trial of our most popular center management system, Accudemia. This gives you the opportunity to use Accudemia for an entire semester risk-free to see if it helps make management of your center and data collection easier. And if you're interested, you can send me an email at rachelc@engineerica.com, and I'll put that in the chat in just a moment. We started this keynote series for our clients and contacts. And I apologize, like I said, I have a little bit of a cold this time. Our clients and contacts who want to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. Our next keynote is going to be in July. We are still finalizing details for that, so just keep an eye on your emails and on our social media accounts for an announcement when we do open up registration. So a quick introduction to myself. I am Rachel. I'm a client success manager with Engineerica. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years. So like you all, I am very passionate about higher education and student success. And I am going to be acting as your MC today. I also have with me Justin Virasamy, one of our technical support specialists, who's here as my backup and also to help with any technical issues that may come up. So I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker, Correy Hammond. As an educator in higher education for over 15 years, Correy has spent his life using his personal and career experiences to help students define, clarify, and achieve their educational and personal goals. Correy received his bachelor's degree in business administration from Xavier University and master's degree in college student personnel from the University of Dayton. Today, Correy Hammond is a business owner, author, and trainer with over 15 years of experience in the leadership development arena. Correy has made it his life's work to help youth and young adults become the best versions of themselves by simply shifting their mindsets. So we are so excited to have Correy with us today, and I am now going to make him the presenter and hand things over to him.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, and there you go.
Okay, so making sure everybody's seeing the full screen and not seeing my notes. We're good. Oh, now it showed me once I.
Yep, now we're seeing your desktop. No problem.
Yep. Of course it would. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Yep.
Oh, gotta love it. Gotta love it. All right. Well, again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We're going to be here for a good time and not a long time. So bear with me. Definitely write down notes for questions because I want to definitely leave some time at the end to answer any questions that I can. That's a cool plug, Rachel, that you just mentioned about Accudemia. Our center actually uses Accudemia. We've had it for several years, and we did not get that hookup of getting a free semester. So if y'all are looking for a center management system, definitely I implore you to use Accudemia and check it out. But it has been an amazing resource for our center. So a little bit more about me and why we're discussing this topic today. So 2016, I was hired as the first director of an academic support center here in the great state of Louisiana to set up our Student Success Center. So tutoring, academic workshops, academic support for our entire campus of around 8,000 students. And I obviously love the idea of the position because it was brand spanking new. So over the past 7 years, just celebrated 7 years in April, I've had the privilege of really just cultivating students and really growing our program. Since we didn't have an academic support center at that time, we boosted our student involvement from about 53%. We are a certified level 3 tutoring center through CRLA. We have a leadership under our belt. And so we really have been rocking and rolling. So this topic of strategies of learning and growing really has been my love child of really just taking all the skills and time and energy and work of not only creating this center, but just impacting our students. And for all of us who are in the field, no matter where you may be, that of course we are sometimes a big voice, just a big impact in our students' lives. So this topic is very passionate to me and us just helping to grow our students up. So where is the state of higher education at? I think in some respects, things really haven't changed, even from way back when. My story, just to give you a quick snapshot, I'm a first generation college student going to Xavier University at that time. I was a good student in high school, but I was definitely not as prepared as I probably should have been for college. So I gravitated to all the resources that I could because I did not want to fail. It was a very expensive school to go to. I had a lot of scholarships and still had to take out student loans to attend. So for me, failure was not an option. So I gravitated towards all the resources that were available, from our writing center to the math center to anything you name it, and also got involved as a student. So I know some of the students that enter into our campus where it still feels like yesterday. It's crazy. I just celebrated my 40th birthday in April as well, but it still feels like yesterday when I first stepped on a college campus. And to be in this profession 15 years later, I still feel for our students and understanding even where I can reflect back to myself of how I needed and wanted the support to be successful. So that's just a little bit of my background story, which kind of brings us here to today. Again, fast forwarding 15 plus years being in this career, I've done everything from being a hall director to working in dual enrollment, TRIO, to coming here in 2016 to be the first director of student success. So as I said, our profession, some things have changed, of course. We just mentioned someone talking about AI. We know that's a game changer for our campuses, and we're all navigating how to shake and move in this craziness of students wanting to use AI for everything. But some of the nuts and bolts of things haven't changed in terms of, having maybe traditional learners on your campus, students wanting affordable education, and of course, us having an increase of online educators as well, or online learners, I should say. So we have to do a better job. All the campuses, like, we aren't exempt. We have to do a better job of providing the support that our students need to be successful. And a lot of times that comes from helping them transition what's going on in the classroom to outside of the classroom and making it all make sense. So I love this quote by one of my favorite rappers, Drake, which says, "Sometimes it's the journey that teaches you a lot about your destination." And that's so true for our students, and it's so true even for our own individual lives. I'm sure if I had the opportunity to sit with you for a couple of minutes, you would share something that would echo that it's all important of how we get to that destination. And sometimes that's hard dealing with our students of today because they're so used to immediate gratification. But the biggest thing that I've learned over my career is really trying to encourage students, for one, to be proactive in how they approach just college in general, not to do stuff at the last minute, but letting them know it is a process. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. You didn't make it to college overnight. It took you going from kindergarten to now to get here. So you have to have a little bit of patience when you're trying to navigate this new process. So for today, what are we going to do? I just lost my mic. All right, testing 1, 2. Did my mic come back in? Sorry.
Yep, you sound good.
Okay, so what we're going to do today, I'm going to kind of bring you into my world of how I connect with students on multiple different levels. So, and even sometimes when I'm presenting to faculty or presenting to groups like this, I can do it as a workshop to bring everybody to the board and make sure we're all on the same page. I can do it as a training for staff so that they're on the same page. I can do it as a one-on-one session with the student. So today I'm going to kind of do a little bit of 2 deliveries, kind of like the classroom presentation model. And then also, like, if you were a professional having to meet with a student one-on-one, how can we help students grow? How can we help them take ownership in their learning to be the best version of themselves and navigate our campuses effectively? So video time, let's get to it.
Taking that internship in a remote mountain lab might not have been the best idea. Pulling that lever with the skull symbol just to see what it did probably wasn't so smart either. But now is not the time for regrets, because you need to get away from these mutant zombies fast. With you are the janitor, the lab assistant, and the old professor. You've gotten a head start, but there's only one way to safety: across an old rope bridge spanning a massive gorge. You can dash across in a minute, while the lab assistant takes 2 minutes. The janitor is a bit slower and needs 5 minutes, and the professor takes a whole 10 minutes, holding onto the ropes every step of the way. By the professor's calculations, the zombies will catch up to you in just over 17 minutes. So you only have that much time to get everyone across and cut the ropes. Unfortunately, the bridge can only hold 2 people at a time. To make matters worse, it's so dark out that you can barely see, and the old lantern you grabbed on your way only illuminates a tiny area. Can you figure out a way to have everyone escape in time? Remember, no more than 2 people can cross the bridge together. Anyone crossing must either hold the lantern or stay right next to it, and any of you can safely wait in the dark on either side of the gorge. Most importantly, everyone must be safely across before the zombies arrive. Otherwise, the first zombie could step on the bridge while people are still on it. Finally, there are no tricks to use here. You can't swing across, use the bridge as a raft, or befriend the zombies. At first, it might seem like no matter what you do, you're just a minute or 2 short of time. But there is a way. The key is to minimize the time wasted by the 2 slowest people by having them cross together. And because you'll need to make a couple of return trips with the lantern, you'll want to have the fastest people available to do so. So, you and the lab assistant quickly run across with the lantern, though you have to slow down a bit to match her pace. After 2 minutes, both of you are across, and you, as the quickest, run back with the lantern. Only 3 minutes have passed. So far, so good. Now comes the hard part. The professor and the janitor take the lantern and cross together. This takes them 10 minutes, since the janitor has to slow down for the old professor, who keeps muttering that he probably shouldn't have given the zombies night vision. By the time they're across, there are only 4 minutes left, and you're still stuck on the wrong side of the bridge. But remember, the lab assistant has been waiting on the other side, and she's the second fastest of the group. So she grabs the lantern from the professor and runs back across to you. Now, with only 2 minutes left, the 2 of you make the final crossing. As you step on the far side of the gorge, you cut the ropes and collapse the bridge behind you, just in the nick of time. Maybe next summer you'll just stick to the library.
Absolutely love showing this as an icebreaker and an intro into this topic that we're going to cover. Spoiler alert, it's going to be stuff that you probably already know, and that's the awesome thing about education. Oftentimes, it's the things that our students already know, but we're trying to pull it out of them. This is an amazing icebreaker that I like to do with our students at the beginning of any presentation when I'm talking about study skills. So imagine showing that video, pausing it when it said it was to pause, and having a room full of students, 100 students, 20 students, 15 students, try to figure out this logic puzzle. And at the end of it, we may have a winner, we may not. But the good thing is that they're working in groups, they're trying to figure it out, they're talking to each other, all cylinders are firing. And I ask them questions, a series of questions, just to kind of pull from them, why do you think I would have you do this presentation? And I hear a little bit of everything. These are some of the main questions and points I like to point to when asking them about this logic puzzle. So what's the benefits of actually writing something down? What's the benefit of a logic puzzle? What's the benefit of thinking through things? And you'll be surprised, it's so cool just hearing their thought process of everything. Some of the things they may say is like, this presentation or this icebreaker shows teamwork. It shows how we need to communicate better, how we need to, rely on each other to understand what's going on. And those are all true. So I'll break down just one benefit of each one. So benefits of writing things down. It enhances our cognitive abilities. We know, and oftentimes students don't realize that they are only storing things in their short-term memory. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So writing things down are very, very important in academia. Benefits of logic puzzles. Why? They're a awesome problem solving and critical thinking tool. So that is an important aspect that students have to grapple with when they're in college as well. And number 3, the benefits of thinking things through. It's the decision-making process, whether in the group work, whether they're doing in small groups in their classes, or having to navigate things with study groups. It's all about that process of decision-making. So this starts to get their juices flowing, starts to get them starting to conceptualize this whole idea of taking on ownership of their learning. Because what are we meant to be? Each of us in our institutions, we're meant to be that bridge for our students, right? And so we want all of our services, whether it's the tutoring and academic support center, whether it's the counseling center, whether it's even rec sports, we want to be that bridge for our students to cultivate those skills needed for them to be those independent lifelong learners. What we do not want is to be the bridge that collapses in the middle, where our students drop out, that the retention rates aren't there, that they maybe go to a different institution or just give up altogether and throw their hands up. So how can we be better equipped to be the bridge for our students? And it's through this key word that I love to use called metacognition. So metacognition, and all of us have probably heard of it at one time or another. It's thinking about thinking. It's being a conscious problem solver. But in short, it's all about how we empower our students to take ownership in their learning. I'll repeat that again. It's how we empower our students to take ownership in their learning. So that first exercise that I just showed you is a great icebreaker to be able to do that and initially get their wheels turning, get them thinking about how can me as a student, no matter if I'm a first year student or even if I'm a graduate student, take better ownership in my learning to do well and be successful while I'm at this institution. And what I've come to realize that it's no difference from sometimes different, yeah, they have some differences, but in terms of those skill sets that's needed, I've seen it for, again, the first year students transitioning in, transfer students, sophomores, juniors, and again, I've also seen it even with our graduate students that they need some help and support. So that's what we're going to continue to talk about today of metacognition and how are we empowering our students to take ownership in their learning. Another core exercise I love to show, go ahead and read that. Take literally 30 seconds, read it, and see if you can answer those questions in your head. And I'm literally counting. We're on 7 seconds. I'll give y'all 30 seconds. $15 more seconds. All right, time. If you're as smart as I know all of you are who are on this call, you would have been able to answer all 3 of these questions. And remember, mind you, I show this to students to have them work in groups to do it as well. So what is corrandic? Corrandic is an emerald groth with many ribs. Number 2, what does corrandic grank from? It granks from Correy. Question number 3, how do garkers escarp the tarantus from the Correy? By starping it in Tranker Clark storbs. Again, why would I have you guys go over a seemingly incoherent paragraph to answer the questions, which of course all of you passed the test to be able to answer those questions? This is another good example of trying to tell our students, or show our students rather, the importance of some of that transitional idea of coming from high school even to college. And it also shows them that you can have seamless information that doesn't make any sense and still do really well potentially in solving it. But it also shows how students oftentimes, as I said, whether they're that transfer in coming in from high school to college or they've been here forever, even as a graduate students, how our students are used to just regurgitating facts to do well in a classroom, but in our reality, no knowledge has been gained. They have a very false sense of accomplishment. And because of that, they end up hitting these brick walls when they come to our institutions. So showing this is, again, showing them that, yeah, you can answer the answers really easily to a quiz or even exam, but has any learning really taken place? And have you even taken it upon yourself to dig deeper to the material that you're learning? And so this is a good eye opener for our students. And especially for some of those fields that we know really build upon each other. Yeah, I may be able to regurgitate my way through an English course, figure it out, pass with a B or C. But for our students, for example, they're in like the health sciences, physical therapy, any of these science majors, we know that for some of the biology and chemistry courses, they all build on top of each other. So if you're just regurgitating information and really not digging a little bit deeper to understand what that information means, by the time you get to your junior and senior level, you're going to be doing, you're going to be working a lot harder for one, and most times you may have to be repeating a class or two because you didn't get it when you should have. And it often also throws our students out of the running for that major. A lot of times, in the old philosophy, for especially from some of the health sciences courses, we've heard and we've seen maybe the old school style of even teaching, where if you don't pass your first chemistry or biology test, professors may even tell students, this major, this degree isn't for you. And we know probably our institutions, we have some people with that thinking, that same kind of concept of, nope, this is not for you. But then we also probably have folks at our institution, students that we know that have, it took them 5 years, it took them 6 years to graduate, but they got their undergrad in biology. That there are students who enter into medical science programs, whether that's dentistry, whether that's what else, to be optometry, whether it's to be, a doctor, and they've gotten into pre-admittance type programs that kind of let them enter the program and see how they do, and then let them continue on to actually move forward and eventually get their degree. So we know that sometimes it may take a student a little bit longer to fulfill their dream. But if they are just out of the running, out of their first or second class, they could have missed out on a great career path that could have been a good fit for them. So we have to kind of put this in perspective of students, put it in perspective for students to say, just because you maybe failed one class or two doesn't mean that that's not a good fit for you. But you doing a better job of taking ownership in your learning can help you and put you on a path to be more successful for that degree and for that major. So yeah, this is what I love showing students initially, just to get their juices flowing and also show them, yeah, you may have been hot stuff in high school and got a 4.0, but by the time you come to college, it's a different ball game, because obviously the high school to college transition is totally different. One of the things I love to show students as well, and I'm gonna give you all a few minutes to figure it out. If you have a piece of paper, jot it down. And some of y'all know this because we're actually in the profession, but I love to give students this as well, to give them a real world snapshot of comparing high school to college. So look at that, look it over, and I'm curious to see, give y'all just a few moments, 30 seconds again, to see what you would put in for all of those blanks. For high school, number of classes, number of test scores, number of chapters, who's responsible? And then for college, the number of in-class hours, number of test course, number of chapters on the test, and the reasons responsible, who's responsible for teaching in that regard. All right, time. So what the national average on all of those numbers are as follows. So imagine this being a rude awakening for some of our students. As I said, it does not matter if they're a freshman, a first year student to a graduate student, of sometimes them undervaluing the time, effort, and work that has to be put in to be successful, while they're in college. So they don't value it as much as of course we do, but it's important to show that. And as we see here at the very bottom, who is responsible for the learning to take place? Remember, we're trying to put ownership back on them. Not saying that the professor doesn't have any part to play in it, but she doesn't have as much as the students may think. In high school, it's the teacher. In college, more of it is put on the student. So how does metacognition come into play, and what is the metacognitive approach of helping our students understand all of this? The biggest thing when I first became a director was really honestly trying to conceptualize all of this, to say, yeah, it all sounds good. I know we use buzzwords in higher education, but how can I make these things very practical to the students that we interact with? How can I make this very practical for the staff that I interact with? And ultimately, how can I even make this practical for the campus that I'm at, and even to bring this to other people? So that has been my journey all this time. And so I'm bringing it to you. The metacognitive learning approach, the teacher-centric versus the learner-centric model. So as we see here, for the teacher-centric model, as I just showed you with that diagram on high school versus college, it really shows what a lot of our students are accustomed to coming from high school. Honestly, I get so frustrated sometimes with our educational system. And I know it's not every district everywhere in the United States, But it seems just from experience that my international students who come over here, we have a large soccer program, so we get a lot of amazing international students from all over the globe. And it seems like they're so much more prepared for our institution than other students. And so one day I sat down and just kind of chat with them early on just to figure out like how was their educational system. And come to find out, if you didn't or weren't aware of this, I learned that a lot of times when they're at their like junior and senior level of what's considered high school in other countries, they're already transitioning into like college level work, college level expectations. So by the time they get to America, it's like a no-brainer. They just understand and know like this is what I have to do to be successful. And I love that about, you know, learning that from our international students. However, oftentimes here in our American educational system for our high school students, we're trying to get them out the door and barely trying to get them over to the actual college or even community college. And so we're expecting them to do so much in the course of what, 2 months, 3 months for them coming from high school to college. And so it often is a gap there. But they're so used to the teacher-centric approach. That approach is you teach, I learn, I do what you tell me to do, and I get a good grade. That goes back to that false sense of accomplishment and me showing y'all the paragraph that seemingly made no sense. That's how sometimes our students approach their college level work coming straight from high school. The teacher taught, I regurgitated the information, I crammed the night before, I did well and got an A, so I'm good to go. And then when it comes to college, we have now transitioned, or we want them to transition to a learner-centric approach. And the learner-centric approach is much different than the teacher-centric approach. The learner-centric approach, again, puts the onus on the student to do well. And I love this example of showing the learner-centric approach. If you've ever been whitewater rafting, or if you're not, this is a good demonstration. If you can see that person in the very back that has the orange on, that person is actually the person who is telling the team what to actually do. So they're leading from behind, and the students that are up front are navigating the water. And so that is the approach now we want our students to be accustomed to now having a little bit more, as I said, ownership in their learning in terms of connecting with their professors and reaching out to academic supports if they are too overwhelmed, to reaching out to our counseling services, all these other avenues that we have on campus to be successful. We now have to help bridge the gap and show students you have to have a different approach to maybe of how you approach high school now to college. And I keep emphasizing this, y'all. It's not just the first time students. It could be our transfer students. It could be our adult learners. It could be our graduate students. I dealt with a graduate student this time last year who was struggling in his MBA courses for the very first semester. And through some of the approaches I'm showing you guys, just working with him, showing him different study skills and how to approach his MBA program differently. By the end of the summer, he was a straight A student, and he was in fact now teaching his classmates who are asking him, how are you doing so well in this course, in all the courses that we're taking? So I was able to give him game, he was able to pass on that game, and that's how it should be on our campuses. Students helping to impact each other and helping themselves grow and taking ownership in that learning. So one of the first things that I also love to show students, and this is starting to go into how we can even approach our staffing, how we can even start to approach some of the group settings where we may have students, is letting them see information about their learning and kind of learning styles and what this all means. So for us, like, we all have heard of Bloom's. Like, that is like being an education profession 101. You've heard of Bloom's taxonomy. Sometimes some high school students have heard of it. They have not. So the first thing that we do is like to show them Bloom's to give them a big picture of their learning and how they can grow in being a college student. But this is the old school style of Bloom's, of course, showing the nice pyramid with everything just so nice and cookie cutter. A new model that we have also used for the past 7 years really takes Bloom's to a different level. And it shows it as follows. So Bloom's, if you can see it, is in the very middle. We have metacognitive learning goals on the left, and we have corresponding learning outcomes on the right. But I tell you to just draw your attention to the money. So our students, that's one thing that they always get. They understand money. So when I'm in a group setting and I tell students, if I have $5 in my hands right now and I say, let me give you $5, or if I have 500 in my pocket and say I can give you 500, what would you prefer. And of course, 9 times out of 10, unless a student's just being a smart aleck, they'll say 500. This is an easy way for them to look at their learning while they're in college. What is going to be your approach? Are you going to take the $5 approach to your class, or are you going to dig a little bit deeper to take the $500 approach to your class? Now, let me backtrack a little bit just as I'm explaining this, and we're just going to stick with Bloom's and we're going to stick with the money. Of course, I tell students, being realistic, it's not like every single course that you have to give 150%. We all know that. That's just not realistic. Some days when we come to work as professionals, you know, you had a rough night, you may have had a child that left, that kept you up, or you may just have had insomnia and couldn't sleep. And so you come to work dragging, but you still make it there. Like, we all have been there, where there's times where we're not 110% for whatever task that we're completing. So the realistic thing for our students is letting them know, like, yeah, it's okay. Like, there's going to be some courses you're going to be able to navigate and probably put towards minimum effort. But then there will also be courses where you'll have to navigate how to learn different, how to study different, how to take notes different. And you need to be okay with shifting that for that course in order to be successful. So I tell students, like, the $5 range, as you see from Bloom's, is we turn Bloom's upside down. That's just the remembering stage. That's the very surface level where a lot of our students are at in terms of learning. They just want to regurgitate, get a good grade, and they think that they're doing good. But we know as professionals, we want them to dig a little deeper. We want them down to the analyzing, the evaluating, the creating. That's the $50, $100, and $500 level. So as I said, those science classes, yep, you need to do some analyzing and evaluating. You got to dig a little bit deeper. Even some of maybe your psych classes, yeah, you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. Again, you may be able to skate through an English class. You may be able to skate through a history class because it's maybe more facts and kind of just putting down dates and things. But it's important for our students to know when and how to shift in order to be successful. So we always give students this document as well to help them see the big picture of their learning and how they may need to approach it differently as they move forward. So now I want to transition into a little bit of a program that we created years ago, to really help in the coaching kind of atmosphere. And it could be coaching one-on-one, small group coaching, or just even a student comes out of nowhere and just comes, sits down in your office. Y'all know some of y'all are amazing professionals, and you may not have nothing to do with those students, but they just love you. They vibe with you. They think that you're cool, that you're amazing, and you just end up being that ray of sunshine when they see you on campus. So they just may come, sit down, and vent to you. And these are some of the things that you may be able to help them out with in terms of taking that ownership in their learning. So through our coaching program, and we started this a number of years ago, but we found out that if we can have a minimum of like 2 to 3 visits with the students, that we can really see change happen. That a lot of what I just went over with you all, as I said, spoiler alert, is things that you all may have already been doing, students may already have been doing, or at least having some awareness of, but they just haven't been practicing it, or even better yet, just putting a name to some of the terms and concepts. So that's what we want to do, or that's what we've been able to do with our coaching program, and just connecting with students for a few short visits. So what we've done is taking the opportunity to really get to know that student through that interaction. These are some of the nuts and bolts of it. You don't have to be this in depth, but we've had an intake form. So that's just a form saying when they first are interested in some type of coaching or academic support, have them fill out a quick questionnaire about who they are. That also sets you up because it allows you to know a little bit about the student before they get to you. Or if they just showed up randomly, it gives you opportunity to, even it could be 3 or 4 questions just to open up a conversation. The biggest thing is kind of letting the students guard down and you being able to even share and divulge a little bit about who you are. So we developed an intake form. At the very end of our meeting, we try to do a metacognitive awareness inventory with them. That's actually a national kind of inventory. You can look it up and search for it and it should pop up. But just having them answer the questions of how their experience was with our office and with our services. That could be done, after the 3rd visit, or in a perfect scenario, if they stay with you throughout the course of a semester, it could be given to them at the end to say, have I actually impacted you? You hope they say yes and have them complete that. And then of course, we look at the GPA of students just to kind of see how it compares to the rest of our student population. And then we usually have some type of small exit interview as well. Now, this is a full-fledged coaching program, but as I say, I'm giving you nuts and bolts, bits and pieces that you can use as early as we're Thursday, as early as probably next week, Monday, as you connect and meet with students on your campus. And it being summer for all of us, and I know on our campus, summer is a little bit slower. So it may be a cool time as you have students trickle in, not as crazy as it would be in the fall or spring, to start, enacting or using some of these tips and tricks to help students start thinking a little bit differently about their learning and how, of course, they can take ownership in it. So that's just the nuts and bolts of our program. And I want to continue to show you some more pieces of it. And we're going to break down some awesome tools that I also give students, because of course we want to give them tools. So during my coaching session, this is really my big to-do, what I'm trying to do during that one-on-one time with the student. Again, I want to build rapport with that intake form. I want to establish a foundation through the one-on-one. I want to create some action items for them to have some work to do when they come back and see me, and then some follow-up. As I said, in a perfect scenario, I can get 3 sessions, but sometimes it may all have to be done in one. Sometimes it may be a second session. So of course, I try to meet the students where they're at, but ultimately I want them back in my seat because I want to challenge them a little bit on how they're getting ready to approach this a new way of learning and studying and trying to grow. Because y'all know, if it's not broke, a student will not try to fix it. They've been doing this since they were in middle school, elementary, in high school. They may have been able to skate away through a couple classes in college. If it ain't broke, I'm not going to try to fix it. So why would I? Oftentimes it's when they start hitting that brick wall, when they hit that professor maybe who's only doing two exams during their whole semester, or one midterm and one final, or 4 quizzes and then 1 final. Like, that's when students start to hit that brick wall, because they've been doing the exact same things over and over and they're not getting the same result. We've all been there. Even me being a college student, I've been there where it's like, I've studied, I've done it, I studied for hours. I'm not a procrastinator, so I hate to cram. I'm the type that I want to at least a week before, I'm looking through my notes and trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm like, I didn't study the whole week to just get a C or a D on an exam. These are the same results I know you're hearing from your students. So if it's that broke, they're not going to try to fix it. And then when they are trying to fix it, we could be the it factor to helping them turn things around. So the one thing that we love to show them, and it's a QR code on there. If you want to scan that QR code right now, it'll send you directly to where this form is located. And I'm going to share about my friend Leonard Geddes, who a lot of you I'm sure may have heard of. But Leonard was a huge impact to initially help me conceptualize this thing called metacognition. So with our university, we had undergone a full accreditation, and he sat, I guess, on the committee, and it was his job to kind of help folks understand this whole idea of pushing our students to be better critical thinkers, to be better learners. That's all what metacognition is in the grand scheme of things. And Leonard was an awesome resource that we utilized for a number of years in our staff training and development. So that QR code will link directly to his website, where you can see all of his information about these forms and other tips and tricks to be successful. But then I also want to show you one awesome slide from Leonard. So give me one moment. Let's get this going. Well, and actually, one is not here. I may have missed sending you one, Rachel. So I'm sorry about that, but I think we're good. We're good. But check Leonard out. He has some awesome resources that are there, even some YouTube videos which are conceptualizing a little bit more of what I'm talking about. So this is the first form that we kind of show our students. Either this one, a variation of Bloom's, to really get them to see the difference of how your money equates to your learning. And it's a good visual for our students. One of the next tools that we use, go ahead, Rachel.
I just wanted to quickly, because I forgot to mention this at the beginning, you reminded me that we have preloaded some of the handouts that Corey would like us to share with you, and you can get those in the handout section. We will also be sending those via email. And for those of you who are going to be watching the recording in the future, we are also going to include that when we send out the recording and post it on our YouTube channel as well.
Yep, awesome. Thank you for that, Rachel. So Leonard is dope in his own right. Another piece of the puzzle I like to share with students is the study cycle. we know oftentimes that students, again, will try to cram, try to regurgitate a lot of information. So the study cycle is a amazing way to help them really understand and break down some material in like chunks, so they're not trying to do too much over the course of, an evening or 2 days. So I do want to show this quick video about the study cycle, and that QR code I put right there will also lead exactly to the study cycle.
Want to become a more efficient learner? Put the study cycle to work for you. This 5-step proven approach helps students create a process for learning that can be easily applied to their coursework. The 5 steps are preview, attend, review, study, and check. Step 1, previewing. When you preview before class, you can understand the big picture. Skim through your text, PowerPoint, or videos. Note any bold and italicized print, headings, formulas, graphs, and other images. When you have the big picture, what you experience in class makes more sense. Step 2, attend. Go to class. It seems obvious, but attending class is an essential step. Being engaged by taking notes and asking questions will help you feel more connected and get more out of class time. Step 3, review. As soon as possible after class, take 8 to 10 minutes to review your notes, fill in the gaps, note any questions you still have, and highlight important points. These first 3 steps, preview, attend, review, will help you get the most out of class.
Reviewing after class helps me reinforce new concepts, which really makes me feel more confident.
Step 4, study. Dedicate study time between each class. Use this time to engage with and process the material through active learning strategies like summarizing, concept mapping, practicing problems, or group study. Ask critical thinking questions like why, how, and what if. Remember to study in small increments using focused study sessions. Step 5, check. Check your learning by teaching the material, quizzing yourself, or working problems without using notes. Periodic checking will help you refocus and adjust your learning or methods if needed.
Checking my learning by testing myself has made a huge difference. Now I can see what material I need to work on and focus on that before the test.
The study cycle is designed to work the way your brain learns best. This method helps you move information from short-term to long-term memory and reach higher levels of learning. Start using the study cycle today, and you'll be a more confident learner in no time.
So the study cycle. So looking at these two in conjunction, just to explain again with the blooms and then the study cycle, in a perfect scenario, if I know a student is going to connect with me even a day before, these are materials that I like to send out just so that they can start getting their juices flowing. Remember, the whole idea, and I think half of our job, just from experience, really is just developing some kind of rapport with that student to let their guard down, to let them know that, I am somebody that you can know, like, and trust. I've been doing this, like I've been where you're at as a student as well. So I can help you navigate through some of these challenges that you're maybe facing. So I love to be able to send these to students in advance if I can. So then when I'm actually meeting with them and they're sitting across from me, we can kind of take our time to go through these activities along with, as I said, just getting to know them. Part of just breaking down that barrier is just being able to share who I am. As I said, some of my struggles, that I'm a first generation college student too. I've been where you're at. And even just getting to know a little bit about their home life, something as simple as how many brothers and sisters do you have? Like, what did you do in high school? What are you doing here on campus? What brought you to our university? Just those little things to disarm that student, to help them be like, okay, like they seem pretty cool. Like the advice that they're giving me may be beneficial. Like I may be able to adjust and do this once I leave their office. So it's helping them to be comfortable. And then this also can be a great partnership, whether you're with the student, meeting with them one-on-one, to be able to walk them directly to your tutoring and academic support, to let them see that, okay, we're going to use this in conjunction. Like it's not just a one-stop shop. It's not just a one-time deal, but let this be a process for you. And as I mentioned, the biggest thing is also letting them know, like the things that we are helping you with to learn and understand, they are going to be different. They are going to be new. So you can't give up on it too soon, and you can't just expect for you to get it overnight. Now, I will admit from experience as well, Some students who understand and start doing these small tweaks can make adjustments as early as maybe the next exam that they have. Like I've seen it happen even with Javon, as I mentioned, the grad student that I was working with. I seen him turn it around by the time he had his next exam and he was in his MBA program and he was kicking butt and doing amazing. But some students, it may take a little bit longer. So it's okay to let the students understand and know you have to stay in your lane. This is some new concepts for you, some new understanding, some new learning, but take it slow and continue to grow during the course of the semester. Even going back to the form, I always tell students at times, like, I'm not expecting you to necessarily go from $5 to 500 in one semester, in one class. Like that's being unrealistic. But even if you can drop and move to one level for that course, like that is amazing progress. If you are from just regurgitating and remembering everything and you drop down to that understanding during the course of the semester, like you've won. You're on your way. So again, it's being realistic with the students and not having them bite off more than they can chew, but saying this is a process. So be okay with the process. Trust the process, as they say. All right, another one that I love to show students too is metacognitive note-taking strategies. Remember, we're trying to put tools in the students' hands so they can utilize, whether they're in class or even at home, to be successful, take better ownership in their learning. So if you look at this form in detail, it really describes just a different methodology of taking notes by having them create those aha moments while they are in class. So on the one side, you see it has like metacognitive or monitoring their learning. On the other side, it has their actual note taking. It has some information and things they could do at the end of class. So let me kind of go through this and explain it. So the left side, a student would just take a sheet of paper and kind of create this dynamic of separating their notes. And on the left-hand side, they're creating their aha moments. And on the right-hand side, they're actually taking down their notes. This one, I would say, by far, is one of the most challenging things to really help students break down how they take their notes differently. Because I usually see students in a couple different categories. One, the student who just regurgitates and writes down everything the professor says. It may be even the student who brings a tape recorder, who, if the professor may talk too fast and they have to record the whole lecture and then go back and listen to it. Or it may just be the student who jots something here or there, or it's the student who doesn't take any notes at all. And what did we say back even to the logic puzzle that I showed y'all at the very beginning? It's so very important for us to write things down. And so this is an example of showing students the importance of doing so, of writing things down. So they're taking notes just as they would, normally per se, but then they're also creating the aha moments. Those aha moments are connecting the notes to actually make them come alive for the student. So the aha moment should be personal. They should be very personal to the student so that they're remembering that information. And then at the very end of class, they're trying to do themselves a quick reflection, something that's 3 to 5 minutes. And what's that's doing, in addition to the study cycle, it's creating a constant state of learning. So after every class, they're learning a little bit. At the end of every week, they're learning a little bit. So by the time a quiz, an exam, or a final happens, they've been in a constant state of learning and not just trying to cram everything at the last minute. So what could an aha moment look like? Y'all, we all have kids or nieces or nephews or just young people that we know. What are they into? They are into, I'll speak for my kids, they are into anything anime. My kids love SpongeBob, which is funny because I watched SpongeBob when I was back in college and love SpongeBob. They're into TikTok, and they're just like into actually 90s culture, like with their dress and their, like my daughters, I have 3 kids, they're all teenagers, and they love, I swear they wish they were 90s babies like I was, because everything is like their swag and their whole persona. They love 90s stuff. So anything for my kids, if I'm having them create notes or doing note taking, anything of that could be aha moments with a lecture that they're a part of. Say, for example, it's a biology, chemistry lecture, and they're talking about cells, anatomy, things in the sea, anything like that. Since I told you my kids love SpongeBob, they may have equate a funny episode with SpongeBob, with Squidward, with Patrick that relates to that class, like of what a seashell is or what something is that's in the bottom of the ocean. I don't know, whatever it is their aha moment is their aha moment to say, I'm thinking about this when that professor is talking about that. And why that's important, because it begins to create memories for the student in their learning, and they're now downloading that into their long-term memory versus their short-term. A lot of times where our students get it twisted and they get mixed up is that they are thinking everything can be stored in their short-term memory. And we all do it. We've all been victims of doing that, being somewhere and saying, I'm going to remember that license plate number, or I'm going to remember that recipe, or I'm going to remember the price of X and whatever at Walmart, and then you get home and then you forgot everything. Like, what was I supposed to be remembering? What's happened? And that same thing happens with our students when they're in class. When they're in class, all cylinders are firing. It's like, yeah, this makes sense. I understand what the professor's saying. It's all good. Or even if they're actually taking notes, they're just doing it word for word. And then when they get home, a couple hours later, a day later, then they're going back and they're reflecting. Them like, I don't remember anything, or these notes don't make sense. That's because they really just put all that in their short-term memory. It was just, okay, all cylinders were firing. It makes sense. It felt good. But when now I have to go back and do some work on the notes that I took, they made no sense. So creating those aha moments starts to make the connectors for our students to make their notes come alive. And this is a similar exercise that can even be done with reading, to make your reading come alive. Making aha moments as you're reading passages. It's kind of the same concept. And I sent you guys in the materials, will have both of them for note taking and also for reading. But we want them to take ownership in their learning by having a more proactive approach to how they read material, to how they do note taking, to how they study, so they aren't just flying by the seats of their pants, and of course doing things that they always have been used to doing in the past. So I want to show, I think this is one of my last videos, because I love what our great philosopher Oprah had to say about aha moments.
How does it feel to have a phrase in the dictionary named after your phrase, aha moments? That's crazy.
You know what the wonderful thing about aha, though, is? I can't even remember how early on during the show days I started saying it. But this is the thing about an aha moment, and I love having them, where you think you've never thought of it that way before.
Right.
But an aha really is, think about this, you can't have an aha unless you already knew it. So the aha is a remembering of what you already knew, articulated in a way to resonate with your own truth. So the aha isn't somebody teaching you something. The aha is somebody helping you to remember.
That's an aha moment for me.
That's an aha.
I didn't think about that.
That's what it is.
I just love that. So that is our goal. That is what we're trying to do. That is what we're trying to accomplish in helping students take ownership in their learning. So I brought you guys to the very beginning of just an icebreaker to kind of show the big picture of it, breaking it down to a one-on-one interaction and things that we can really even show and have for our staffing, for anybody that may be on our staff, whether they are professionals or even students, to start pushing students and pushing the needle to take better ownership of their learning. And again, I can attest to it by being a director these past 7 years. I really have seen the impact of our students. I've seen the impact even for our staff, because we forget sometimes our staff are students too. So some of our staff utilizes the services in our department. And then obviously just being able to teach and share with other professionals is just so important to make sure that we are learning and growing along with them. But it is possible, it is doable for our students to learn and grow and become better critical thinkers. So I can't leave without showing a few different resources and talking about them. And of course, I'm going to open it up for questions, because I do want to hear from all 232 of you, or just a few of y'all. So I want to make sure I left plenty of time, because I knew we had such a big audience today, to answer any questions that I can to help us all learn and grow, and for us to learn and grow from each other. So when I first started, these are several friends that I can attest to. They're near and dear to my heart. I already mentioned Leonard Geddes of Learn World Projects. There his QR code is again, but he was instrumental in helping me and my staff really understand and break down what metacognition was and how we could actually have tools for our staffing to really relay this information to our students. An amazing person, amazing resources. Next up is Dr. Sandra McGuire. I'm here at the LSUS campus in Shreveport. Our flagship is in Baton Rouge. I know we just won the women's basketball championship, so go Tigers. But the cool thing about Dr. McGuire, she is a professor at LSU. She is the professor emeritus. I forgot how you say that Latin piece, but anyway, she's just dope. She's amazing. But she's another one who is just a guru in all things metacognition. And so she has two amazing books, Teach Students How to Learn and Teach Yourself How to Learn. And these are books for students. One is for them and one is for us as professionals, but have been to many of her presentations online and in person, have met her. I love when she describes Leonard, because we were all in a session one time and she was just saying how she said Leonard reminds her of John the Baptist, and she would say that no, that she's John the Baptist and Leonard is Jesus. If you know anything about religion, John the Baptist was just like super rough around the edges. He would be the type to like probably slap you if you said something mean. If you said something mean to him, he would be the type. I'm losing everything. John the Baptist would be the type who would slap you if you said something mean in the Bible, and Jesus came with like a more refined, nicer message. So she jokingly will say that's who Leonard is, because she says her message is really rough around the edges, and then Leonard is a little bit more refined. And so they empowered me and gave me the green light to be able to use their resources and use their materials to pass them on to others, and empowered me to write my own book, which is a lot shorter than all of theirs, because what I wanted to do in writing my book was to make it a very afternoon read. If you were getting ready to meet with a student the next day, you could get through my book and have all the tools, all the tips, all the tricks that I just gave you to be successful with connecting with that student. So they are, again, dear friends in the profession. They've allowed me to input a lot of their materials and to use them. And so I have to make sure every presentation that I give them their big ups, give them their props, just to say how amazing they have been in my life over these 7 years. So outside of that, that QR code, I think, leads to the books and my book and all that good stuff, or Amazon search it and things. Nothing to promote, but I just want to make sure those people are shouted out because I love them to death. And the last thing, of course, just who I am, website, check me out. But would love to impart to any school, to any institution. This is what I do. I love imparting into other professionals, just as we're doing here today. We all have things that we can learn from each other, and it's so important that we're continually in a state of learning and growing, because we expect our students to do it, and then we got to be doing the same thing. So we're ever evolving. Y'all know this profession keeps changing, keeps growing. As I mentioned, AI is a trip right now. It's so funny how AI has like paralyzed some campuses with what students have been doing. And I know at the beginning of the semester for us, I think a student probably was able to get an AI paper maybe through Turnitin, and now like Turnitin is even catching the AI paperwork and plagiarism. So just new levels, new challenges in the profession, but I love it, love it, love it, love it. And of course, the students give us life. So that's who we are here for, to drop all this knowledge and gems for, so that they can be successful while they are on our campuses. So we have a little under 30 minutes. Again, I want to make sure we left plenty of time, so we had so many people in the room. But Rachel, however we want to moderate, if any questions have been dropped, or if we're just having people completely save them to the end, let's definitely open it up so that we can answer whatever questions people may have. But thank y'all so much. It is always a pleasure and a privilege and an honor to just connect with other professionals. So thank y'all. But what questions do y'all have?
Yeah, we've had a few questions come in. The first from Amy, she says the study cycle video was impressively produced. Did you do that yourself with another campus department or professionally? She said she's been wanting to do some videos for their students as well, but don't want it to look homemade, quote unquote.
That one was from the flagship campus, so LSU helped produce that one. So that's the luxury of being able to tap into when you're part of a state school system. You can tap into their videos. But if you want to back channel me, I maybe can do some research and find out, actually connect with their academic support center to see who specifically on their campus produced it, because they could have outsourced some of the work, but then connect with you as well on that. That's one aspect of it. A second aspect I will say, and I've used this as a business owner and also even as a professional, because sometimes we do want things to be a lot more professional and polished than what we're capable of. But there is also a website called Fiverr, 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 and it's a freelance website where you have freelance artists from all across the globe. Things used to start off at $5, that's why it's called Fiverr, but now you can get projects as low as still $5 or $10 with inflation now, all the way up to maybe a couple $100s, but there's freelancers from all across the globe. And even for my academic support center, when we maybe needed different graphics or different video work, we've looked on Fiverr and have paid to have a professional do it and whip it up for us so that we could have it for our center as well. So that's another avenue as well you can look and check out, and hope it helps you.
I've used Fiverr as well for personal projects. It's really good. You have to make sure you're vetting the people and try to find pay people what they're worth if possible. But yeah, it's a great resource, because otherwise it's hard to find freelancers for various tasks. Okay, Becky asks, do you have any examples of the metacognitive notes? My brain always wants an example of something, and it would be great to offer to students.
I did back channel me, to be perfectly honest. Usually students are a little personal about their notes, so I've seen them. Students have been in my office and showed them to me, but I haven't like kept them, and that's a great idea. I need to keep some of those notes to be able to show it to other people. But I've seen students do it, but I don't have any particular things that I've saved for students, because they've been like, okay, I'm showing you what I'm doing, and am I on track? And I'm like, yeah, that looks good. But I would say, even with that, the most important thing, even I would say, if I had a student, I always love to first kind of see where their notes are at, because their notes are going to be really personalized to them. And if they have their paper, a lot of times where I point to where they could even input the metacognitive note taking is just say, like, use your margins. Like, so you have these notes, go back, and you've already, went over these notes that your professor did, but go back to your margins and see if you can find the aha moments. In a perfect scenario, of course, you want to have them doing it while they're in class, because that's when all their cylinders are firing. But it could be very much, I'm just have my little notebook here, if you can see it. But there are different notebooks and things that we have. If they've written different notes and things down, and all their notes may be here, again, they usually aren't using their margins. So have them just go through and start pointing out, like, putting a little different aha moments in their margins. And then the next time that they're in class, just try to make that column where they're separating their notes and leaving a little bit more room for those aha moments to take place. But yeah, back channel me. I'll definitely see if I can dig up some information and see if I can get it to you from one of our students for sure.
Okay.
Great question.
And our next one is, how do you respond to the critique that this stuff about learning strategies is old school, no longer relevant, and so why do we need to respond in this way, or why do we need to learn this? These are unrealistic, other potential critiques. These are unrealistic expectations. You don't understand the issues that I face. I can't give it that much time or energy. Other things are more important.
Whew, that's loaded.
It's loaded.
That is a loaded question. Usually, if I'm coming in with a student that has that much kind of drama and baggage, and yes, some of our students sometimes do. For me, I think, to be perfectly honest, like, that's why the conversation piece for me is so important, and me having that intake form. And again, you all can create any kind of intake form that you want, or if you don't have the luxury of creating that and the student just comes in, just to really hear them out, to start to break down some of those walls and build rapport. Sometimes the conversation and some of the things that you're alluding to is just the frustrations of being a student. We are, our campus, I would say, from all the campuses I've worked at over the years, is a very much commuter campus, even though we're a four-year institution. So a lot of our students they come to class and then they leave because they have so many other responsibilities. We have non-traditional students, their parents, we have students who are taking care of siblings, students that need to work. And especially during the pandemic, I mean, people really tried to maximize not having to come to class and working at a job maybe 30 or 40 hours and still trying to be a student. So I think I've dealt with all different types of students who, that they want to be successful, but they haven't made school a priority. And that's sometimes the hard conversation that we have to have. I would never want to deter a student from being in an institution, but it's almost like I think to a certain degree, we set them up to fail if we don't have those real conversations with them of, like, what are you actually doing this for? And I know for our particular institution, we want to eliminate barriers. And I think probably every institution wants to eliminate barriers for students. But I think sometimes, just as my personal opinion, that we give students too much of a handicap to not make school a priority. So I know you have a lot going on. Life happens to us all. Life be lifing, right? But how can we be successful as we're going into this next semester? So sometimes when it's all crazy, it's just trying to take baby steps. Okay, you came and met with me. That's the one thing we can work on this week. Let's at least try to get you with some time management and at least try you enacting one part of the study skills. Like you can't just be doing your homework the night before. Like you have to carve out some time for your actual classes. Again, the form that I showed them and having them even break down, and that's in your list, that's in the materials as well, breaking down the difference between high school and college, letting them visually do that themselves to say, okay, what time can I start to carve out actually for school? Ultimately, what I found out, even with students doing time management, and there's tons of time management things people can do via their phones, if they want to use technology or old school with a paper, is that all of us have a lot more time than what we think, but we aren't using our time effectively. So again, I think we've all been there. I've been there, but I try to take those baby steps, having that real conversation with students to kind of see where they're at. But then at the end of the day, saying like, you have to be willing to, I'm going to encourage and push you to be willing to make some small changes, because you can't just have school as a back burner. And it may not be your first option. It may not be your second option, but at least should be probably in your top 5. Now, if school is down that's, in your top 10, maybe not so much. It may not be a good fit for you right now. So I try to balance that professionalism with just really being honest with them of like, what are you doing this for? Like, why? And how can we use enact baby steps to make sure that you're still successful? But yeah, my heart goes out to that question because it is so loaded. But believe me, I've been there. And yeah, sometimes our students are like, why the heck are you in school? Like you got 2 kids and you're juggling a full-time job and you are the sole provider and taking care of your grandma and everything, and you're trying to do it, but they have a goal. They have something that they want to accomplish. So again, we don't want to deter that, but we have to balance it with some realism, and then also just enacting those baby steps so they can get little wins along the way.
All right. And our next question is, how would you adapt this to a drop-in tutoring format?
Oh, that's easy. So the drop-in piece, a lot of times, and if on your campus, if you have it, so you can answer this follow-up if you can. For the drop-in, the initial Blooms and Learn Well, this is a form that I would have all of my tutors give to a student. And it's not meant for the tutor to spend 20 minutes on it. It's just a quick 2-minute snapshot, even of shorter than what I gave you guys. It's for the tutor. If they're drop-in, it could be even the front desk of your drop-in tutoring center, so that this starts getting handed out to, or some version of this gets handed out to every student who enters your door. And all the front desk person needs to do is tell the student, look over this as a big picture of your learning, and this may be where you're operating at. The $5, that's really just regurgitating information. But in the purpose scenario, we want to get you down to the 500 where you're evaluating, creating. Sometimes the conversation is just the awareness of, oh, I didn't realize I was operating like this for my learning. So a lot of times, all of our staff would just give this to an initial person for that one-on-one opportunity. And then it's our hope that we can connect them with some type of coaching. And we've adapted a motto over the years of professionals as coaches. So I was a coach for a number of years when we were short-staffed, graduate students as coaches, or even peers as coaches. So again, you don't have to have a maybe in-depth coaching program per se, but hopefully, even if you are the professional in the room, and even if you maybe have to make a model of some group kind of coaching, that you can at least expose them to the idea of taking ownership in their learning, and then roping them back in to connect back with your office. And using that technology. Our students oftentimes use the excuse, I don't have time. Yes, you do, because we all have Zoom, we all got Google Meets, we all got Microsoft Teams, all these avenues where you can be on your phone and you could have a break at your job, your 15-minute break, your 30-minute break, and you probably can tap into me. So there's no excuse in that regard in terms of, I try to tell students there's no excuse in terms of tapping in and getting some type of help and support. And we also have some online tutoring as well that's available after hours. Remember, we started with a very small campus, so we can't be everything to all students. So I'm always trying to make sure that my tutoring staff or even my front desk staff can at least leave a student with something if they can't meet with a tutor or a coach right then and there.
All right, and I do want to read a kind of a response to the question about note examples that was asked earlier. Christine recommends, has a suggestion, using your notes from this session and sharing it with students. And then says she often uses notes from various conferences as an example for students.
Good one.
So
that was a great one. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, I wanted to read that first. And then the next question is, what is the success rate for first-year students using these study strategies?
You know, I've looked at them. I looked at our statistics as a whole. That's why I threw out that 53% over like the year, but I have not looked specifically at first-year students. And I'll admit to say that some of our data collection has not been as refined as I would like it to be at our institution, and that's just one thing that we struggle with. Again, there's sometimes that we are using Excel sheets and stuff to try to find data and collect data. It doesn't work as best as we can. So I'll be honest, say can't give you that specific data point, but I'm sure I could find it. One of the things that we do in terms of keeping our data, like I said, it's a little bit old school. All of our students who come into the center, we actually use academia to track them. So we have all of our students, and then we also use Excel sheets to look at their GPAs, and then we try to look at their retention. But I can't think of those numbers off the top of my head. So I know I have the data, but it's just a little bit of old school of how we collect it. But I will say, just even off the top of my head, from the surveys that we've collected, I can for sure, without a doubt, say, and sometimes that can be skewed, yeah, because sometimes you're preaching to the choir for those who fill out the surveys. But the ones who have filled it out have said, like, yes, this is life-changing. It makes so much sense. And I would even say, just from the verbal I get from something as our orientation for new students. So we have orientation throughout the summer for new students who are getting ready to enter into the fall. And they're always just saying that even small example of the learner-centric, the teacher-centric is such a new concept for them, because yeah, that's the only thing they know is being taught by the teacher. But again, we're trying to reintroduce them to, okay, you're about to transition into college. The professors are going to be thinking that you are wanting a lot more from you. So again, that's how I'll answer that question, but I apologize. I don't have like the specific number. I can look up and tell you, yeah, we raised it by 5.6% over each year. But of course, back channel me again. And if you really want that number, I would do some digging and find out where we were at. I just got to populate the data. But great question.
All right, great. And the next question is, how does the study cycle work for online classes?
What I had Javon do, my wonderful graduate student, because our MBA program is completely online, what I had him do was to set up his MBA class as if it was a traditional face-to-face class. And that was like life-changing for him. So, you know, sometimes with the online platform, you may have it where, you know, it's something due Thursday. I think for him, something was due Thursday and then Sunday. But he just was finding all these type of random times to try to study and get stuff turned in. So it was like, no, Javon, you're taking an online class, but treat it as a actual face-to-face class. So set aside time. If it's going to be Tuesday and Thursday, if you're going to make it a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, say that your class time is going to be from 12 to 1, and stick to that so you can kind of create it as your classroom time. And then in your schedule throughout the week, you're going to also make studying time as well. So he set up his schedule to be like, I'm just throwing it out there, a 12 to 1 to be his class time. That's the time where he's actually going over the notes, because the professor would have his PowerPoint slides and things in their platform. So that's almost like a version of them sitting in class and taking notes, because the professor put everything on the platform. And then in terms of the actual studying piece, going back with those notes throughout the course of the week, let's say he picked Monday, Wednesday, Friday for his class, and then Tuesday, Thursday may have been his study day, or he still could have had it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Later on that day, then going through and say, okay, I took my notes and things from earlier today. Now let me actually enact it as if this is my study time, and let me go through the steps of the study cycle. So that was the easiest thing to do for the online class. Just treat it really like it was a on-campus class. And the other thing I really had to make sure he was intentional about was to make sure he reached out to his professor a lot more. Since some professors do things differently, and it may not be that classroom environment per se, we chose to say, reach out to your professor to answer any gaps and to help you be able to set your studying piece up from the class. So those are a couple of things that I worked with Javon with over last summer to really master his MBA program. And I think it can be done with any online class. You just have to make sure the student tweaks it accordingly to what's going on and what the professor is requiring.
All right. Next question, how would you adapt these strategies for students with disabilities?
So with our students with disabilities, and I'll be honest and say we're still in our early stages. We have, as a center, and even working with our disability support coordinator, to really kind of make these same things accessible to all students. So we do have a couple other programs that we have and that we're actually looking into as well. Read Write is a program that we have currently that is for students with disability support, and it's like, easiest way to describe Read Write is like kind of note taking and a screen reader for students. So that could be an avenue, but again, it may have to be a different service that you add on to your center or wherever you're working to maybe help students to conceptualize some of that. And then another one that we're looking at is called Glean, Glean, and that like takes it to another level. It's not a screen reader, but they kind of work in conjunction with each other, but we're in our early stages of looking at that program too, but it's all for our disability support students. So that's an avenue, but if you can't necessarily get any extra add-on things, for us, I'll be honest, like my go-to has really just been handling each student case by case and really working with our disability support coordinator of how we can approach for this student. Some students, again, we have a little bit of everything. Students that are blind, that may have to have screen readers or different things. So it's just a matter of, I guess, audio things that can help them be able to maybe study better or use some of the technology that we have. We have some students who, again, may have different plans. So yeah, so that one, it really honestly has been a case-by-case basis. But I still haven't had tons of issues with that. Like, again, we're a smaller campus, so we haven't necessarily had thousands of students needing disability support. But I do feel like a lot of what we enacted and kind of showed could be met across many different levels, even with our students with disabilities. It's just, again, maybe taking things a little bit slower or using some of those softwares that your campus may have. Even free things, there are free things out there, screen readers and things that may be usable to kind of go through some of what I kind of showed for today. But yeah, anything with disability support, we do work very well as a campus. So I'm like, let me connect with her to see how we can approach this challenge with our students. And definitely for some of the students, I would say when we've connected with disability support and they needed the more time for like exams and things, again, some of the same study strategies and things they can do, but then needing more time has made, again, a huge difference in the outcome of a particular course and whatnot. So yeah, disability support, counseling services are definitely our go-tos in handling case-by-case basis for our students.
Awesome. And then for success coaching, do you use incentives to ensure students come in for their meetings?
Yes, I'm not gonna lie. From day one, we have used any and everything. And I've been fortunate to be able to have treats and swag that we can give away, even something as simple as a candy bar. For our athletes, we have a athlete-only program where we've done coaching, and we would always have Gatorade and then something healthy like a Nutri-Grain bar or something like that. So we've had the budget to be able to afford it. I would say if we didn't have the budget, I would be so creative with even connecting with some of the stores in the general area to support you, because your campus technically is a 501c3. So maybe they could support you that way, some of the stores in your local area, or even connecting with your athletic department. And this is just for athletes, but I'm just using that as an example, connecting with your athletic department because they usually have a lot of money to be able to possibly buy things for the center. So just be creative with your funding and how you do it. But yes, anytime that you can offer that incentive, we of course done it for a little bit of everything. Even for our SI, like we have supplemental instruction on campus, and we have snacks for SI so that students come. So yeah, if you can, food will bring them. Yes, it does work. So yes, we do offer those incentives for students to utilize sometimes services. And it is unfortunate. I mean, no, let me take that back. I wouldn't say it's unfortunate. I think for our campus, it meets the needs of our students. As I said, we are a highly non-residential campus, or a very high commuter campus. So I think the food definitely meets a need for our students. with food insecurity as well. So I won't take that back. I think sometimes, even when dealing with some of our faculty here, they will prefer we don't have any incentives for our students, like extra credit or anything, that they would just come on their own free will to study tables or to get help and support. And granted, that could be a realistic, I guess, idea. But what I found is that I want to work smarter, not harder. So if me being able to provide a small candy bar or a small bag of chips is going to like teach you over to really come and utilize services, I'm all for it. And I just have had to be creative in doing so. So yeah, if you can provide anything, great. And like I said, just be creative with the avenues on campus who may have budgets that can help support you. Your athletic department are definitely looking at other stores that may be in the area that can give you those discounts or things for free as being a 501c3 organization.
And we have definitely heard from other speakers before, food works. All right, and yeah, let me see here. There was a couple other thanks, and then somebody says, I passed around / made available my own notes to students for examples of active annotated reading as well as dialectical journaling. And then somebody commented, a lot of these strategies help you save time in the big picture because you are studying more effectively and don't have to study for as long to do as well or better. That's what I remind them. So not a question, just something I wanted to highlight.
No, and I love that. I love that too, because granted, when we are teaching students that this is sometimes a new concept and they think that it's more work, even for example, with reading or note taking, they may be like, well, it's taking me longer. And it's like, it may seem like it's taking you longer, but one, once you get the hang of it, it's going to be quicker and it's going to end up cutting your time in half because you're making yourself be a little bit in a constant state of learning where you're not struggling so hard to prepare for that material, for that exam or for that quiz, versus if you're not doing anything and waiting to the day before, a couple of days before, you're putting so much pressure on yourself to have to go through everything to understand what's going on. So again, it's always just kind of giving them the balance piece of it. Like, you're in college, you may have a lot going on in life, but we want you to be balanced. So if you do it this way, it's going to help you in the long run. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree with that. Love that statement for sure.
Yeah, and I like the teacher-centric versus, and I know we're almost at the end of the hour. We just have a couple more questions if you're.
Oh, for sure. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Me too. I like the teacher-centric versus student-centric diagram. Is that available to use?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I may have put it in the notes, but if I haven't, as I said, use it, steal it, take what you want. Reach me in the back channel. I can give you the exact pictures if you want those actual pictures that I used.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And then next question, do you recommend doing outreach on campus to attract students? If so, what methods have you found to work the best?
This year, I was able to get a graduate assistant who had a background in marketing, and she was so amazing at helping us really pull students in, I think by far. And a couple of things that we did, our social media, I'm showing you kind of free things and things that aren't super expensive. Social media, using Instagram. I don't like Facebook. Facebook also is for old people, so our students really don't like Facebook, but they're on Instagram more than you think, because all of our kids are using TikTok and they're on Snapchat and whatnot. But Instagram was phenomenal for us. So for every program, and like when we went out and did presentations in the classrooms, we would have a QR code that we use for the entire year that we could update and have like all of our programs, all of our services on there. So anytime a student connected to that QR code, of course they would follow us, but then it would be a easy, like almost like a link tree on our Instagram, so they could follow us for all of our activities that we did, and then follow our Instagram. So then we would put ads in the posts, ads in stories of what we were doing. And that really helped us grow a lot of the programming and things that we did. That was a free thing that she did, which was just like, duh, no brainer, but she made it really sync together and made everything really look and flow together. So that's an amazing free thing that you can use as a resource. And if Instagram isn't your cup of tea, again, no hate on Facebook. If students are actually using it, hey, go right ahead and use it. I don't know about making the other accounts because, again, I don't use them as well. I don't like Snapchat. I'm on TikTok, but again, that's a whole nother level. But use social media if you can, because that is obviously a great resource for our students because they're on that thing 24/7. And then another thing in that is what we start doing is kind of posting up tables on our academic mall. And so we would be anywhere where students were at. Sometimes we would be on the academic mall. Sometimes we would be in our university center. Sometimes we would go over to our apartments. We're a highly commuter campus, but we do have a small set of apartments. So we would go and set up a table over there. This is the help of having graduate or student staff and looking for things for them to do. So then we would set up a table there and just have simple things like fruit snacks and a spinny wheel where they could like win a fruit snack or win a water or win a candy bar. And then at those tables, we often still had our QR code. So for events, we would have students sign up right then and there. And we would promote all of our services by having them do the QR code or just passing out, a small postcard. So those two things alone, the social media and just starting to create different tables at any area where students were at on our campus just was huge for students utilizing our services and actually coming out to all the events that we would have throughout the school year.
Okay, awesome. What type of incentives can we offer to students we support virtually?
I mail stuff to students. I'm not gonna lie. Because we have a huge graduate population who utilizes our services, and even when I'm doing emails or if we do a online workshop through Zoom, I always tell them put your email in because we're gonna count you as a participant. And of course, we upload all that stuff to Academia. So for all of our programs, everything for our center runs through Academia. So all students sign in, or even if they aren't physically here, we'll get their student ID and drop it in as attending a program, upload that to Academia, and then we will still do a raffle and still send stuff to students. Now, obviously with mail, I try to send smaller stuff to students who are far away, little swag items that we have. But yes, we still send items out if the student is virtual, and especially if they're out of state. So we have students all across the globe. So yeah, still send stuff out via mail.
All right, and then this question, I work for adult education and some students that are older know how to take notes. Younger students rely on their phones more and are not using paper and pencil. I asked the instructors if they do all this, and I think it is because they use computers in high school before coming here. How do you make a student learn to write and make it a habit?
Ooh, that one, I can't honestly say I have an answer for. That is a hard one. Because for us, I'll be honest, we do try to make sure we meet students where they're at. So if students is so much more comfortable with their technology, I'm gonna say, okay, but how can we make sure that this is being an effective tool for you? I would hate looking at a tiny screen trying to type everything under the sun. For a student, if they have that swipe key, that may be the best way for them. That could be fine. That still could be fine. And as I say, everything that I've given y'all as ideas, you just have to really be thoughtful of how can I make this specific for my institution. Even still with the note taking, if that works for them and they can create that in their notes, so be it. Hey, if you want to do it digital, that still can be fine. And it may be teaching them or pushing them to try both ways. Like try it this way for 1 week, you're doing it doing electronically, and then try it this way with actually writing those down. And let's compare and contrast. But I'm always a big, advocate of if it works for them, great. Let me see how I can fit what I know works into the way that they want to do it. So just be as creative as you can, but challenge them. I'm always okay with challenging a student because we all need to be challenged. So if they're so resistant, I'm like, well, at least let's try it. Let's see if we can get you out of your comfort zone. And if you hate it, then obviously we can go back to it. But as I mentioned through the presentation, the whole thing is just challenging them to know that this is not going to all the time be a something that you just complete and get it the first time. For some of our students, and we know some of our students that may fall in that first generation low income kind of category, just like kind of I was being in college, it may take them a little bit of time. So it's okay with just trusting the process. And I would say for us being patient to trust sometimes their process. We want them to do and bend to their will, but sometimes us as professionals, we have to bend a little bit to their will, but still make sure that we're kind of meeting as best as we can to make sure that, we both get a little bit of what we want. I want you to be a better note taker. I want you to study better. You may have some different ideas of that, but let's work on it together so that you can get from the $5 to at least down to the 10, the 20, and the 50 through the course of that semester.
All right. And Looks like that is the last question that we had.
Perfect.
It's perfect time.
Y'all are amazing. So we timed
Yeah.
everything just right.
We always get we always get such great questions. So if you do have any questions that you think of after, you can send that to us and we can forward that to Corey. Or Corey, would you like them to be able to contact you directly?
Yeah, my email was on there at the very beginning, so I've been throughout. Emails found them on my website or in the materials that were sent out. So yeah, feel free
Yep.
to contact me directly, and then as I said, a lot of the resources you guys will be able to access. But again, thank y'all so much.
Yes.
I'm
And when
always humbled and just appreciative of having the opportunity to present. So thank y'all again.
Well, we really appreciated having you. That was a great presentation, and we will include Corey's contact information as well with the recording. Thank you, Corey, so much for being with us today for this great presentation, and thank you everybody who's still here and for your great questions and for your time. We really appreciate it, and we hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Yes, you guys have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.